even if you're not exceptional, you don't have to be a good public speaker. You don't have to, be amazing at sales. Really, all you have to be is a good storyteller, someone who can really understand their own self-realized story and how it relates to the audience that they're serving, right? The more you do that, and that you can truly show the value of what your program has and how it's going to solve their problem and the transformation they're going to get after they've come into this program, then you've shown why it's of value. So they're like, I'm going to spend money on this right now. I'm going to put my credit card down.
Welcome to the Viral by Design podcast with Dave Rotherow, where we get inside the minds of today's leading viral marketers as they reveal the exact strategies they use to build brands, products, and campaigns that are magnetic to customers, spread like wildfire, and seize the attention of millions. This is Viral by Design.
So welcome to another episode of Viral by Design. I'm very excited today to be joined by Casey Zeman. Casey is the founder and CEO of Easy Webinar, which is an online software platform for running both live and automated webinars. With over 6,000 Easy Webinar customers, Casey's figured out what works and what doesn't in webinar live broadcasts and in video, and what makes a truly engaged audience. He's consulted companies such as HarperCollins, Estee Lauder, and Dell on video marketing strategies and lead nurture funnels using webinars. Having built his own multi-million-dollar software in info product business through the power of live video and webinars, he's passionate about bringing these same strategies to your business. Casey is the best-selling author of Build Your Audience with Live Video and a creator of the Tribe-Minded System, which combines the smart art of automation and engagement to build a scalable business. So, Casey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Dave, thank you for having me. You did a long intro. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to throw you a curveball to kick things off. There's a lot of talk in the marketplace, and there has been for many years, of webinars are dead or webinars are dying or they're on their way out. What would be your response to that?
I would say that storytelling is still at the key of sales. Building a know, like, and trust is still at the heart of sales. Conversation is still at the heart of sales. So technically, I would say that the method of how webinars are used to build a know, like, and trust, to indoctrinate an audience, that's not dying. Where webinars are being used, I think, is and how they're being used is evolving. I'd say there's an evolution. Webinars were dying 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Like they were like, now the webinars aren't these boring 4x3 PowerPoint experiences anymore. And that's what was before, like 6 years ago. I was saying webinars were dying 5 years ago, but that was only to say that webinars are evolving. Like I said, webinars have evolved. The old way is dying. The new way is how you basically you have to look at the culture of our lives and where we're at, right? At this point in time. 10 years ago, selling was a different methodology to some degree than now. People are way more responsive around sharing their vulnerability, their stories, the uncomfortable things that really build that know, like, and trust, right? We were teaching it 10 years ago, but people weren't as open to sharing it. Now you see more people doing it. And so now there's a new wave of marketing where people are using storytelling in a bigger way, which is at the key to a webinar strategy now. Whereas before, webinar strategies, I think, if you look 10, 20 years ago, it was kind of like a presentation. It had pieces that were kind of like boring and not engaging, right? And so I think we went through an evolution 5-6 years ago into this live video and way of talking and communicating with your audience in front of the camera, right? Interpersonal relationship and intimacy came back in the into what is the presentation. Now what we're seeing is we are seeing more conversations that are being used in an automated experience, right? But at the heart of it all, video and storytelling still wins. So I think webinars were basically dying. The old school was dying, as I said, like maybe 5-6 years ago, that evolution of now going in front of the camera, that experience has changed. But no, webinars aren't dying. In fact, now there's a floodgate that's been opened because of the pandemic. I mean, if you think about it, you have the pandemic that has now created, everybody is coming online. They're using Zoom. They're using technology like this, and and the technology is also catching up with the culture. So the technology around being more engaged, is now being caught up with the concept that we must be more engaged to be able to build that more know, like, and trust and interpersonal connection with people, right? It does take more touch points to be able to still, connect and engage with people. But again, webinars, if you talk to any of the people that are top salespeople around, marketers, copywriters, storytelling through webinars are still at the height of it. It's just, where is it going in your marketing, right? A lot of people put webinars that in the early days, we would put webinars at the top of the funnel, where it's like people are entering into a webinar experience. Now that still works, but now there might be a need for using webinars in a more holistic experience, not just in the top of the funnel, but the middle of the funnel. So sending someone to a micro piece of content that, maybe is a freebie of some kind, from maybe a video ad to a freebie, right? So they get to know you, they get to experience something of true value in this downloadable, bite-sized piece of value that they can then take action on, which then can lead them to a presentation, which basically is a high-impact presentation that can be coupled with this value freebie, right? And now with the two mixtures together, your conversions are higher. And so you have to think about webinars in your holistic marketing sort of experience, right? Not just in the, okay, I'm just going to do a webinar and, 100 people, 300 people will show up and, and then that's it, which that still works. I have to let you know, we have one of our clients who just, he ran Facebook ads, got 300 leads on a webinar, or 300 leads in a week's time on a webinar. And then I think he had like 100 people on his webinar and sold 16 units of his like, I think it was either $500 or $997, right? And so that can work, where you just push off, and if you know your numbers, that for getting 300 leads, for each lead costs, $10 or something, reverse engineer how much you're spending versus how much you're making on the back end of the webinar. That can work, but that doesn't always work. And so what people are doing now is that they are adding storytelling via webinars into different parts of the funnel, right? Like I just said, maybe add to a freebie, from the freebie to a webinar presentation. And all that, by the way, that's kind of automated, right? Like if you can, there's what we typically, I mean, it could be automated or live. What we typically see are people using automated webinars in the middle funnel. We see them doing it at the top of the funnel, but a lot of times they're using it in the middle of the funnel, bringing in a freebie, some sort of quick action guide of some kind, building a know, like, and trust, and then driving them to a webinar. Some people will actually get a lead, call the lead, invite them to a workshop. And we do that sometimes. We will get a lead and then actually, say, hey, just want, account manager, just want to just connect base with you. And we're excited that you are coming into the workshop. Just be sure to show up, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so webinars are still widely used because they are so frigging accessible, and we're still using them. All they are is the ability to connect with your audience via this type of technology, whether it's you talking individually to somebody, or whether it's you talking the one-to-many concept, right? And so we don't see it as dying. We actually see it as we're going through a second phase of evolution of how they're being used on a bigger holistic sort of marketing plane, where webinars are one of the big pieces of the pie of creating relationships with people. Our mission at Easy Webinar is helping people scale storytelling, right? Building storytelling that sells. So we want to help you scale storytelling so you could sell better with webinars. And that's what we've been doing with our clients. And the people that are 8-figure earners, 9-figure earners, they're using webinars every single day in their business, and they figured out how to automate that whole process using oftentimes our software.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. I mean, I absolutely threw that question at you as a bit of a curveball, and just to hear your response to it. But I completely agree. Some of the concepts that you've been talking about there in the funnel structures, where it's used more in the back end. So, for example, a thank you page webinar after people have already been through a low ticket funnel where we've liquidated the ad spend, and then hey, if you're going to get like 1,000 people through that every single week, then you might as well get 5 or 6 of them onto probably more than 5 or 6, but you get even a portion of those people to stay on a webinar and then have the opportunity to build that relationship and know, like, and trust, and really structure a great sales message across that 60, 90, 120 minutes to turn them into a high ticket customer. Then it's incredibly powerful, right? So that said, what would you say are the secrets to engagement? Like, everybody's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. So how do you actually nurture somebody's attention for that longer period of time, which is long enough in order to pitch them a higher ticket product?
Yeah. So I think the idea is like how you can continue to serve the problem that they have consistently in your funnel, right? Your problem solution scenario has to sort of reflect itself from the beginning of the funnel, right? And you truly have to understand what their deepest pain, what's waking them up at 2 a.m., and like, what can't they get over? What are they trying to do right now to solve the problem that they can't figure out and solve? The idea is that you come in and you have the solution. You have and typically the concept is you're really focusing on having the uncommon solution, something that they haven't tried yet, or they've seen, but they haven't taken action on it. And so you come in and you kind of share, let me show you why this is why this is the uncommon solution, what it is, why you should be doing it. And then, of course, the how is coming into your program, and the webinar intention is to kind of set up the how. But the more people know that you are going to solve their deepest, darkest problems, the better they'll show up to the webinar. So if we're talking about like trying to get people, to take every action point, every action is a conversion, right? So as an example, like, if you're driving somebody from a Facebook video ad, you have to needle all the way in to where they get the understanding of, oh, I need to fix this problem. I have this problem. You have to create this awareness. Obviously, you have to create the awareness, right? And then you have to sort of twist the knife or understand the pain. And then you have to say, here's the solution, right? So if your ads can do all that, and maybe do it at different points, in someone's journey, that drives them into, maybe a freebie that they download, then a workshop. If the workshop is congruent to that need for them to solve, then they'll jump in. And then, so what people should really start thinking about at every stage of their process is go one step at a time. How am I going to get them from an ad to a lead, right? Or a registrant? How am I going to get them from seeing me for the first time to taking action and coming into a workshop, right? So that is the first step, and you have to think of like where they're at, where their need is, where their pain is great enough, and how you are mentioning that. You create the awareness, you twist the knife, show the pain, and then you obviously have a solution, right? So if you can do that and get people to register, and then what that number looks like, now it's your job to get them to show up to the workshop, right? If you get them to register, that means that they've said, yes, I'm interested in something you're saying, because you're talking about solving my pain. Now, if you get them to register, either to show up to the webinar, one thing that we do oftentimes is on the thank you page after someone registers is to reiterate why they should come to the workshop, right? So we reiterate the pain that they're having, uncover that pain a little bit, and maybe even relate how my own story relates to that pain, like how I was where they were, and share a story. I go back to this, when I was first starting out, I almost lost my house twice. Couldn't figure out how I was going to build leads online until I stumbled, and I spent 6 months building a course online. And I couldn't sell it by the time I launched it out until I started using webinars. But I was, and so I talked about the webinars as the sales strategy, but I was terrified of doing webinars when I first started out, and I was terrible at it. Okay. I was a classic oversharer, right? And so by me telling that story, it relates on all different levels for people who, first off, they don't have a sales process. Secondly, they may feel conflicted around putting themselves out there in a webinar experience because of they're nervous. They don't want to look like an idiot. They don't want to say the wrong things. They think they have to be a tech wizard to be able to do this stuff. And so, tackling those things as it relates to my story, as it relates to them, will help them to know me more, which builds a relationship. And then the goal is, so be sure to show up to this workshop, because I'm going to be sharing with you the exact framework that you need to be able to sell better on a webinar, right? I was terrible at running webinars, but I was a classic overshare, and my sales hurt because of it. I definitely didn't have as great of sales because I just didn't know what the frick I was doing back in the day. So come to this workshop. I'm going to share with you 4 fundamental, pieces to creating an actual high converting webinar that will convert. Okay. You just need a framework. The problem is you don't have a framework, right? Okay, so come into the workshop. So you create enough of the interest, right? But it has to be based upon that pain that they're experiencing, right? Does this sound like you? Have you not had success with webinars? Maybe you haven't. Maybe you just don't have a consistent sales at this point. Maybe you're thinking, you're some months you're up, some months you're down. You don't have a consistency factor. Maybe you're not clear on what your offer is looking like right now, or how much you should be selling, and what's a good price to sell off of a webinar, and all these things that you might be having. So if you can answer those questions enough, saying, I'm going to answer all that, I know what you're feeling, I'm going to answer it, they'll come in, and if it's not, it might be a 1 or 2 of those. It might be all of them. Who knows? But the idea is now you want to get them to show up to the webinar. And so typically I'll do that on a thank you video where I'll reiterate their pain and tell them what they're going to be, able to achieve, what the result they'll get from coming to the workshop. You'll have a framework for your webinars. You'll be able to sell. That means you'll be able to chill out, sell your stuff 24/7, go on vacation more, be with your family more, blah, blah, blah. So they show up to the workshop. Then it's my job to keep them on the webinar, right? And so what I oftentimes do in the beginning of the webinar is create an expectation and anticipation of what they're going to be achieving on the workshop, right? So I try to create a stick factor, an engagement point. And if it's a live webinar, I'm always checking in. So if it's a live webinar, I'm always going through and just calling people out. Like at the beginning of the webinar, hey, Becky, hey, Jack, hey, Gerald, hey, Margaret, hey, Sam, wonderful to see you guys. I see, Dave from the UK, Becky from Seattle, blah, blah, blah. It's like you find, you start to reply to people. You tell them, you guys, I'm so excited because on this workshop, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact framework that you need to be able to sell better off of a webinar, to be able to use webinars as your big lever for getting sales, right? Once you create it once, it can work for you over and over again for the next 5-10 years. Once you dial in this method, this method, you'll be able to use it in all of your selling consistently for as long as you have this business, as long as you're selling this product. So I say, so you're going to want to stick around because I'm going to be sharing that. But there are other things you could do to like create stick factor. Oftentimes, like I've tried everything in the book from, giving away something at the end, or, giving away a free book at the end of this, or giving away a free training or something like that by the end. But I always find that when I do that and people stick to the end, when I make my call to action, it kind of like it disrupts my pitch, because they're like, hey, can I have that free thing that you were talking about? So I try not to necessarily do that. But if I have, like, say, a high ticket webinar where I'm not actually pitching and selling off the webinar, I'm actually more pitching a sales strategy call or a sales call with an advisor, typically I would have like in the beginning of the workshop, I'd say there's nothing to buy, but I'm going to give you something you can download and go through and fill it in as we go. And there's going to be an opportunity for us to review, me or someone on my team to review and audit your, what you're filling out, your worksheet or your workbook or something, like some sort of like I'm almost like a doctor, and I'm trying to investigate your symptoms. And so you're writing things out, and then you can submit it in, and then we can audit it almost like I'm a doctor doing an exam, right? And we've done that before on high ticket, and it just works really well with like keeping people on and then sticking around to the very end. And so your question, I know I'm getting to it 10 minutes later, but I'm looking at it from all angles here. But the biggest thing is, for a live webinar, I think it's always checking in with your audience. It's always like, hey, if this makes sense, put a thumbs up, give me a 1 in the chat, or say, hey, yo, it's like almost just creating this energy when you're doing a live webinar. It's much like doing a live video. Like I'm a geek when it comes to live video. I jumped into Periscope when it came out a few years ago, real early. And so I love that. So, doing live video, you're always kind of resetting and now Clubhouse is out, and they're talking about resetting the room. It's the same concept. Is you're always checking in with your audience, say, how are we feeling? How are we doing? Give me a 1 in the chat if this makes sense to you guys. Where are you at? Tell me what your business is. So you have lead-in questions or polls can oftentimes keep engagement high, but always checking in and really making sure your audience resonates with the content you're putting out there. Like, how about you? Does this relate to you? Have you ever felt this way? Yes. Oh my God, Casey, I've totally felt that way. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Right. And you get them they are not just watching a presentation, they are a part of the presentation. Right. And so that's, I think, also another key to just keeping people on.
I really, really like that. The concept you said about having people go through a workbook all the way through and then have them submit that, because not only is that like massively increasing the likelihood that they actually book in for a call, right?
Yeah.
But also, I remember that one of the first, but I think the first personal development seminar that I went to, or personal and business development seminar I went to, the speaker or the guy whose event it was actually ended up becoming a client in the end, but he had a workbook that everybody went through, and the exercises were basically, okay, so if you did this and this and this in your business, what do you think that will be worth to your business in the next 12 months? And then this was like almost every single time, what do you think that will be worth? Okay, at the end of this exercise, tally up what you think that will be worth to your business. And then by the end of the weekend, there's this gargantuan number. And then that as a kind of price anchor, as a kind of, that wouldn't be a sticker shock, but a price anchor to what the cost of the high ticket upsell course that was being pitched at that event was, just completely obliterated it, right? So just such a great concept to have people actually doing the work and setting the buying criteria in their own mind and establishing for themselves that this would be a really advantageous opportunity.
Absolutely. That's the key right there. They have to sense the value. Value is everything, right? And so if they can't feel what that value is, then they're also not going to stay on the workshop, right? They're not going to connect. They're not going to buy from you if they don't know that you can't break down why this is so valuable, right? And so, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. So I'm really curious about what your, we were talking about the direct to webinar sales process. So a webinar funnel where you're taking cold leads into a webinar and trying to either pitch them to check out or pitch them onto a high ticket call. What's your kind of favorite traffic source right now? Where are you finding the best success in terms of high quality leads?
Yeah. Facebook right now, we do media buying with Facebook, actually, what's funny is like Facebook is doing well, but straight Google ads are actually doing quite well for us. Because if we're talking about the SaaS metrics, right now we're looking at, we just try to get as many trials as possible. Trials, we know our numbers and metrics with trials. So if we can get more trials, then we know that the revenue can swing up. We're tracking our churn. we're tracking our customer acquisition. So, so again, the metric is if we can get trials coming in the door, that's what we truly care about. So we're looking at how they are coming through the door, right? So whether it's coming on the back end of a webinar, which we do. We also have straight ads that just say sign up for a 14-day free trial, video ads that then, show interest to bring people in. We have Google ads where we have some competitor ads running. And those are doing quite well because we also have competitor pages. So we'll do a competitor like a ad which talks about like a competitor to X, and that will drive to a blog article where they can then read the blog article about how they're competitors, and then take action to sign up for a trial there. And so we see those as helpful. So we're doing content marketing. We're doing so we have organic search. That's there. Facebook, also word of mouth. We see a lot of word of mouth coming in, just from like people sharing. And then we also have some affiliate marketing as well that comes through.
Got it. So we went straight in with the curveball about our webinars there. So we kind of scooted over your story, your backstory, and how you started Easy Webinar. I'd love to hear a bit more about like what your background was, what you were doing before Easy Webinar, and how you kind of got into this world.
Yeah, so I went to school for acting and singing, right? So I started off as doing stage shows and musicals and things like that, and I went to school for opera as well. So I did all that stuff, and then that life, I just hated being a broke actor. I hated being like a starving artist. It wasn't I loved the artistry. I just didn't like the starving part. So, I went into real estate because I was trying to find a job where I could still be an actor. So I found this perfect sort of job where I worked as a mortgage broker for a friend of mine out of his garage. And it was just the two of us. And it worked for like a few years where it allowed me to buy a house, here in LA. And I made enough money to do that. But then, and this dates me a bit, but in 2009, the market crashed, the recession hit, and then so I went from making $250,000 a year in like 2008 or something like that to now making like 15,000 the next year, and I almost lost my house twice, and I was scrambling to try to find leads online and figure out how I was going to filter more people into my real estate business, which took me down the rabbit hole of learning about online marketing, which then led me to realizing that one of my friends, he was a friend of a friend, but then I got to know him more, and so one of my friends was someone who was an online marketer doing this stuff, and so he and I had lunch a couple times, and I learned about what he was doing. I joined his program, and I went and started learning from him. His name is Chris Farrell, and good guy. He's also a Brit, so he's a lovely dad. Anyway, he said to me, gave me really good advice one time. He said, Casey, you're jumping into online marketing, but you need to choose one thing. Your one thing. What's your one thing you're going to focus on? And so that's when I was like, I got to choose my one thing. What's my one thing? I got to do it. He's like, then you can branch out once you choose your one thing. So I dove into YouTube, and I immersed myself in learning about YouTube. And so I was considered kind of one of the early, or people that were doing YouTube marketing and video marketing. So I was learning about it, and then I started getting clients because there was not much competition. I was learning about it and figured out how to get videos found in the first page of Google, because YouTube is the second largest search engine. It's owned by Google. So I was able to start helping people get their videos ranked on the first page of Google. And I did this for a couple clients, had big success with it. And so I started acquiring more clients around this. But I had this, I couldn't seem to keep money in the bank though. Like I was like working, I had like 5 clients, each paying me maybe a couple grand a month or something like that. Right. But I was working so much. I I was so stressed out. I couldn't seem to scale this like sort of agency model. So I decided I wanted to become a course creator instead. So I took the next 6 months building an online course while at the same time writing a 250-page book all about YouTube. And by the time I launched the course and the book, I just couldn't sell it. No one, I didn't know how to sell it. I was like, here's the product I have. I just couldn't do it. I was able to get video on the first page of Google and bring leads in that way for clients, but I didn't know how to build leads myself. So that's when I started like looking around and long story short, although this got long, sorry about that, is I basically started trying to do these webinars. I saw people doing these webinars. So I had an idea one day of creating a video in YouTube, inviting people to a workshop. And so I said, hey, my name is Casey Zeman. If you've ever wanted to know how to get on the first page of Google, leveraging the power of video and YouTube, I have a free webinar where I'm going to be teaching this exact strategy. And I did that. And when I did that, I started seeing people actually sign up to my webinars. And I always had that video on, so I just linked it to like a go-to webinar that I started running on a weekly basis. And I started with just doing free webinars with no pitch because I was terrified of selling. I was sucky at it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. So I was just like giving everything away in my course because I just couldn't figure it out. Which then, I built up so much goodwill that people started coming out and saying, Casey, I'd love to promote your program, or what do you have going on? Because while I was creating all this goodwill, people would DM me saying, hey, is there anything I can buy? And so I started having people buy just because I wasn't doing, they felt like they were getting too much value to not spend money, right? Because that is a thing where they're like, why am I getting so much free from you? They'll feel awkward and want to pay for something. So I started to say, yeah, you can, they started DMing me. I was like, okay, PayPal me this and I'll get you into my course. And so people started indirectly coming in. I was charging like $97 at the time for the course, just indirectly. But then people started coming in. They thought it was really great. Then I had a guy who came in and he was like, Casey, this is a great course. First off, you need to be charging $197, $297 or higher for this course. And I felt like, so I think he said, do $297. And I was like, so nervous. I said, how about $197 to start? And so he said, that's fine. And I'll promote it. Okay. And so I had this guy promote me, and he got like 400 people in a live webinar. And I was so green, man. I was like this, I was just terrible at it. I had a busted up PC, onboard microphone, no video on. I was at my wife's parents' farmhouse in Iowa, in the back trailer of this house. And it was the dead of winter. So the wind was like, whistling through the windows. You could hear a heater blaring in the background. Sounded like it was crazy. And the internet was so intermittent that it would cut out in every now and then. And on that workshop, I knew I needed a pitch. So I worked on what the pitch would look like. And I strung it together, and I overshared on the workshop like I normally do. I teach too much, right? Train too much. And by the time I made the offer, 10 people bought. 10 people bought the offer at $197. It was the first time I sold. But there were 400 people on the workshop. So technically, I should have sold 40 people at least into that program. But because of the fact that I just didn't know what I was doing, I sold only 10. But 10 is still 10. 10 is not bad, And I realized at the time that there's a lot of room for error for webinars because, inherently it just builds a know, like, and trust. So even if you're not exceptional, you don't have to be a good public speaker. You don't have to, be amazing at sales. Really, all you have to be is a good storyteller, someone who can really understand their own self-realized story and how it relates to the audience that they're serving, right? The more you do that, and that you can truly show the value of what your program has and how it's going to solve their problem and the transformation they're going to get after they've come into this program, then you've shown why it's of value. So they're like, I'm going to spend money on this right now. I'm going to put my credit card down. Now, I wasn't doing a very good job of that at all when I started out. So I had to figure that out. But yeah, so that was my first experience with running webinars. And then, the affiliate was so angry he was not angry, but he was like, hey, I'm disappointed. First off, like we should have sold way more. And he said, and you're pricing this thing way too low. And I think you need to go learn about putting a presentation together. And so I just started learning about how to do webinars more, learning about, storytelling on a bigger level, read some books on it. And then I went back out and I got some advice that I need to up my price. So I changed my price from $197 to $297. And I dug in my offer a bit, and the program didn't change. The program didn't change at all, by the way, in all this. And then I sold my course on a webinar at $297, and I sold 10 of them to only about 100 people. So I had 100 people on. I sold 10 at $297. And I realized that, wow, the pricing didn't really matter, and actually I just increased my conversions. And to be honest with you, when I did it at $197, I had one or two people actually refund. Sure. When I did it at $297, I had one person refund. But then I had a guy come out and say, Casey, now I want to promote you, but the program has to be $1,000. Your program has to be $1,000, otherwise I can't promote it. And so I was like, well, I want this guy to promote me. So I changed my price to $1,000. No, I didn't change the program. I just changed the price. And so I changed the price to $1,000. And I changed maybe one value add that I did is I created a coaching. I said, I'll give you a 30-minute coaching or a 15-minute coaching, onboarding coaching type of thing. And that was the only additional thing I did. And so I sold. So when I did this and launched a webinar, did a webinar, I had maybe about the same 100 people on, and I sold on that webinar like 15 to 20 units of my $1,000 course. And I realized at that time that, first off, pricing is only in my head, right? Value is based on the results they can get, and whatever result that value is, as long as it's greater than your price, you're in a win-win scenario. Now it's just a question of being able to convey that value to them, to make them realize that this is the value that you could be getting by doing this. You're spending this much, but this is what you'll be able to achieve after you spend this much, right? And my job was to just be able to convey that. And so I learned ways to do that in a better way. And then that's when I started to sell more. And that's what I needed. So then I started selling on a weekly basis. And I didn't always get 100 people. Typically I got 30 people showing up to my webinar weekly. That was it. And that's all I cared about. I was like, if I can sell 3 people into my $1,000 program on a week from one weekly 1-hour webinar, I'm okay for now. And so that's what I did. And that's how I started earning $12,000 a month from doing, one presentation per week, same webinar, same presentation, just inviting people back in. And that's how I started to make sales. And then eventually, sometimes I would have more people on, like 50 or 60 people on, and then I would convert 6 sales, So I was always trying to find that 10% conversion number on a weekly basis. That led me, sorry, I know this is getting really long, but
right.
Anyway, that was my course creation process. And in that first year of being a course creator, 2012, I made the same amount that I did in my real estate business. So then I stopped being a consultant. I got out of real estate completely, and I was just focused on being a course creator. And then webinars worked for me so well that I wanted to figure out how to systemize webinars in a bigger way. And that's when I started to talk to developers about building a platform that would allow me to scale my one presentation over and over again. And that's when automated webinars were born, and that's when Easy Webinar Plugin was born, which was an automated webinar platform for WordPress. And that's when we launched it out. So that was like 2013 or 14 when that got out into the marketplace. And then, it went through a lot of iterations. 2015, we did our first big launch with it, and acquired 1,000 customers at that time. And then, throughout the years from 15 to 16, 17, we were trying to move out of being a WordPress plugin. So in 2018, we completely got out of being a WordPress plugin, and we became a full SaaS platform that does live and automated webinars. We rolled in a live stream tool, much like Zoom here, into our system. And we also adopted a monthly recurring revenue model. Before that, we weren't doing that. I was selling plugins, I was selling licenses of Easy Webinar as a plugin for WordPress. And then even after that, we were doing annual recurring billing. But we really didn't jump into MRR until 2018. We didn't really start doing that. So it's been a wild ride, but that's when we started with Easy Webinar in the monthly recurring model. And then since then, we've grown pretty extensively year over year with that model. So
that's cool as well, man. And it really illustrates what I love about your backstory is that really illustrates, first of all, how powerful webinars are and how you can take the exact same information, increase the price, get a better quality of customer, and sell more products, right? I love that, the thing that you touched on there about the refunds. And as has always been the case that I've found over the last few years in business, is that it's typically the people who pay the less, pay the least, complain the most, and vice versa, right?
That's right. Yeah, the least people pay, you're going to have more headaches on the back end. They're going to be a lot more hands-on. But the higher the price, the better the customer. Basically, you're going to get a higher caliber person. They're maybe going to even take more action because you want action takers. So I look at price as a filter. I use the webinar to filter the right client. The webinar filters the right people that have the right problem. The pricing filters the right people that have the biggest need for that problem, or that understand fundamentally the need for that program, and they're ready to take on that program to fix the problem. Right? Yep. It's like they're aware and they want to fix it now. Right? Yep. And you've already done the job of making them understand that the value exchange that they're going to be receiving, and the transformation they're going to be getting. So, and if someone's willing, to put down $1,000, that means that they understand, and they're probably more apt to put work into accomplishing the goal, and finishing the course and getting the result they're actually looking for. So, yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, those who pay attention. That's great. Well, so thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, man. Like, incredible backstory. I know Easy Webinar is an incredible product. So I've got a bunch of clients who use it, and it's really robust bit of kit. What in your own words, what's the big sell about Easy Webinar, and how can people find out a bit more about it and get signed up?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Easy Webinar, our mission is to help people scale storytelling via webinars, right? Workshops, masterclasses, webinars. So the big thing is when you come on to Easy Webinar, we take a holistic approach of doing webinars. So the very first thing is you need to learn how to do good storytelling via a workshop. And so we have a live system that you can go live with, and you could test your message. You can run live webinars. You can actually do a webinar live and then send that broadcast while it's live into Facebook Live and YouTube Live at the same time. So as if you're a coach or consultant, or you're trying to build a community up, you can be doing these webinars where you're running let's say a weekly webinar that pushes into Facebook Live as well. And then in the first 5 minutes of the workshop, you're like, hey, so we're streaming this right now to Facebook Live, but hey, I want to invite everybody who's watching in Facebook to join me in the webinar room, because that's where I'm going to share resources and answer your question. I have a poll and some really great things. So all the good stuff is inside the room. Right now, we're broadcasting to Facebook Live, but if you want the good stuff, if you're watching in Facebook Live, there's a registration link right there that you can join me inside the room where you can ask questions, right? Or get that resource. And so doing something like this is pure list building, right? So if you're doing something like that on a weekly basis, you're not only creating high engaged content on Facebook, but you're also now driving people into a webinar and building your email list and starting that with live. And once you've tested that, once you've gotten familiar with running live and you've tried to get 10% conversion or so, now it's time to start taking that, after you've done a testing ground on your live webinar, now it's a question of scaling it. So that's when you could take a live webinar and turn it into an automated evergreen webinar, right? Where you duplicate that experience over and over again in your attendees' local time zone. And you now put it into basically a sales funnel, right? Or sales experience using a webinar, right? That you can step out of and then just focus on sending the traffic through, tweaking the message, making sure you're getting purchases and buyers, having a follow-up email, right? And that flow, now that you spend money on Facebook ads, right? You pump up the Facebook ads, and then you get the response, right? So once you know that you have something that sells, then it's time to test and pump up and scale, right? And that's the beauty of Easy Webinar, is that you can go through this process. You can start live, run live webinars, know the data, get better at it, turn that into an automated or evergreen webinar, and then and then now scale up. Some things that we're doing for our clients, we go very deep with our analytics, so people know what kind of schedules work better than others, and we're going even deeper with that. There's this whole problem right now with Facebook ads and the iOS 14. I don't know if you know about it, but yeah, it's kind of a big problem where you won't be able to track conversions. But we've already solved the problem, because our clients, some of our biggest clients, send in 100,000 leads or more a month through their Easy Webinar. So that means like 100,000 registrants coming in a month. And they're sending most of that traffic through Facebook. So we needed to come up with a solution for them to be able to track the conversion. So we have something rolling out very soon that's going to be for everyone, so that they can track their conversions, even in the face of Facebook changing all of how this works on us, basically, right? Because that's our mission. The name of the game is we want people to be able to scale up storytelling. So we need to continue to deliver as a platform that allows people to customize their webinar experience, but moreover, use Easy Webinar on a very big level, so that they can make money 24/7, and use Easy Webinar as their main sales tool. Like that's what we have. People tell us all the time, you are our main sales strategy. We use, your platform is the thing that makes us money. So, we understand that, we take on that responsibility. It's a heavy burden, but we take it on, you know what I mean? So we have to work as often as we can. We have to have, premium customer service, and we have to have, a scalable platform, which we do. And so those are the reasons why one should use our system, because we're an all-in-one platform. Marketing is also in there. We have a whole email system, and pretty soon, coming out soon, we have even other more built-in tools that allow you to basically, you won't need anything else except Easy Webinar to basically sell your products and services. You'll be able to just crush it. So I won't give too much away here, but you'll see some stuff coming out, Dave, pretty soon here.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited about it. Yeah, and it's great that you're getting ahead of the curve on the iOS 14 stuff as well, because we're very conscious of that right now and seeing a lot of fluctuations in accounts. So that's a big thing that's coming around the corner. So yeah, it's great to hear that you guys are on top of it. So Casey, thank you so much for your time, and your wisdom. It's been so great. And yeah, we'll make sure all of the links are in and around the podcast episode on the website. And thanks again for taking the time.
Of course, Dave. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This has been the Viral by Design podcast with Dave Rotherow. For more viral marketing secrets and to get detailed cliff notes on all episodes, visit viralbydesign.net.